In today's Locked On Pelicans, I'm going to tell you how Zion Williamson wins NBA MVP, how Herb Jones wins Defensive Player of the Year, and why CJ McCollum can make a run for Sixth Man of the Year. We're starting the campaigns early in a Friday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Friday, wrapping up the week, and we got a show for you. Zion for MVP, Herb Jones for Defensive Player of the Year, and CJ McCollum as the Sixth Man of the Year. I'm going to tell you how they win those awards, and we'll throw one or two little bonus things in here for you as well. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're going to use FanDuel a lot in today's show to use the odds to kind of help us with the discussion of this as well. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. Let me know if you're an everydayer in the comments down below. So let's get into this one. Zion Williamson for MVP. And this thought jumped into my head when Tom Ziller from his Substack, Good Morning, It's Basketball, started running an MVP long list. And there was some discussion the past week of like, where does Jason Tatum kind of fit into this, which is why we're doing the too early discussion of MVP, in September. But here's what Tom Ziller had to say, quote, "This might be a real stretch, but on a number of mid-tier West teams, there lacks a clear alpha. Not so with the Pelicans. If the team is truly great, it'll be because Zion is playing a lot and playing his game. Please remember that he almost made All-NBA in each of the 2 seasons where he played at least 2,000 minutes. If he's on the floor, he's putting up numbers, and the Pelicans are probably winning games. Should New Orleans have a surprisingly good season, that could stack up in a real way." End quote. I don't disagree with this at all. And in fact, it's kind of right, though I will put an asterisk on it, and we'll get to that in the latter part of this segment here. Zion right now isn't in the MVP conversation at all. He's 14th per FanDuel at plus 7,500 to win. But this is a guy who had a ridiculously good season last year. His numbers were truly excellent. 23 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 0.7 blocks. He shot from the field 57%, which is low for him, to be truthfully honest with you. Got to the line 7 times. It's real good. We just know how good Zion Williamson is. By the end of the year, he was receiving All-NBA consideration. There was a very good chance that he would have made the third team. Didn't end up happening. And I don't even think last year was that great for Zion Williamson. Right? He played 70 games for the team last year, and my whole screen just went blank. That was super weird. Okay. He played 70 games for the Pelicans last season, but it kind of felt more like 50 to me. It took a while for him to get going, partially due to scheme and hierarchy. In the beginning of the year, they were not running a Zion-centric offense. You remember that kind of famous press conference he had where he said, I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to find out and understand this new role. And it's taking some time. It's an adjustment. Well, this year, they're looking at him as the guy. They're going all in on Zion. This is the centerpiece. I think they wanted to see him prove that he could be healthy, do all the right things. He did that by the end of the season. And now he's coming in probably in the best shape of his life, ready with a clear, defined role on the opening game of the regular season. He could get off to a very fast start, which he didn't get off to last year. And look, it was also on him, not just kind of the coaching staff and how they wanted to use him and all of that, right? It was really only after the loss to the Lakers in the in-season tournament in December that he really got going, that he committed to getting in shape, stacking his days, doing 2 days and things like that. If he's already doing that, so his season didn't really start, it feels like, till January, let's say. But now if he's coming into the season ready to go, in mid-season form on the opening night against the Chicago Bulls, which that's how every player should be, but not always how it goes, that's going to go really well, right? Like, to me, that screams that things are going to be okay and that he's going to play particularly well if that's the case. And that means he's going to have 20 games, not where he's ramping up, but where he is just in the top form for him. That is how he ends up, I think, winning MVP, winning these games, and doing all the things that you want. The team will win behind all of that. I'm trying to pull up his stats right now for what they were by the month and can't find them. That's, I think, what we're really looking for with him. And if he does that, like, good luck, right? Like, good luck when it comes to that, to the rest of the NBA, because he's basically been unstoppable when he does that. When he really gets going, when he's ramped up, his December points per game were 20.4, 21 in January, 24 in February, 24.1 in March, and in 7 games in April, 23.6. It got better as the season went on, culminating with that almost epic comeback win over the Los Angeles Lakers. He's going to have a narrative behind him too. And that's, I think, sometimes important with this, right? They're going to be like, look at him. He's finally reaching his potential. We got to give it to Zion Williamson. If the team gets close to 50 wins, Zion plays 70 or more games and is like good from the jump, he's going to be in that MVP conversation. He can finish top 5 pretty easily in there. But why won't he win? Why would he maybe not win? I want to look at that really too in all of these segments. Here's why he won't win it. And this is, I think, the Jason Tatum effect. With Jason Tatum, his teammates are so good. He sacrifices some points. It depresses his numbers a little bit, dampens his numbers a little bit. And people just don't give him the credit for the winning and being the best player on the best team because everyone is so good on that Celtics team. I think you have a similar situation here with Zion Williamson, potentially. Too many cooks, too many mouths to feed. There's a lot of top-end talent on this roster. You have Zion. You have Brandon Ingram. You have DeJounte Murray. You have CJ McCollum. You have Herb Jones on the defensive side of the ball. Who knows what Trey Murphy's going to do this year? We think big things. If you have 3 guys scoring 20 plus in CJ, BI, and Zion again, that means Zion won't be putting up 26, 27 points per game, which is maybe what he would need to win MVP. And they're going to be like, no, the Pelicans won 50 games, not because of Zion, but because of Ingram, because of the addition of Murray. And that'll take away from Zion Williamson's candidacy a little bit, even if he's still the driving force and the best player on the team and kind of the engine behind making them go. That could take away from him here. If you trade BI for parts or CJ for parts, role players that aren't that top-end talent, Zion then numbers will go up, and I think you can then look at him potentially winning MVP because that's kind of one less person that's taking the shine off of him. I don't care how they do it. I just want him to win, whether it's with Zion-centric or team-centric. That's all that matters to me is winning, but that's going to potentially hurt Zion Williamson's candidacy. But if they're winning, is going to be in the running for it because it means he's healthy and putting up numbers. You at least look for him to make an All-NBA team this season. So let's flip the script here. Let's get on the other side of the ball. Look at Defensive Player of the Year. I've got like 2 reasons why Herb Jones is going to win. This is the one I feel the strongest about. Herb Jones winning Defensive Player of the Year. I'm going to tell you how and why it happens. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, but right now we got something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, so time is running out. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free try of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game, and all you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Look, the opening night lines are out for the Pelicans for the entire NBA, -6.5 over the Chicago Bulls. I think they're going to run away with that win. The Saints are now -3 over the Eagles this weekend. That flipped big time. People are on the Saints. They're going to keep the momentum going. Derek Carr having fun, looking good, wanting to prove something to the fans. Or do you want to get in on these end-of-season awards? Zion Williamson at very good odds to win MVP. The odds that you're going to hear for Herb Jones, I'll tell you right now here, he is 13th when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year at +6,000. He wins. That's a great PAM. So there's your $5 bets you need to get your free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket. So visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook right now. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. If you came out to the live show at Sports Drink on Wednesday night, I appreciate you being there. Shout it out in the comments if you were there and what you thought. It was a lot of fun to kind of be with, just some of the greats in Pels media there. Now for your second listen, Locked On NBA. There's no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's keep the award train going. Let's start campaigning right now. It's campaign season as is. And let's look at Herb Jones. 13th per FanDuel, 13th favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year at plus 6,000. My notes, when I do these, I kind of write out my open. Then I do like segment 1 and some key things I need in there. But the overall, like, what's the big takeaway? For this one, my note is this. Literally just says, this one is easy. It's Herb. Right? Like, he's going to be in the running for it. This is a guy who was on the all-defensive team last year, the first team, and he finished 5th, 6th, I forget, in terms of Defensive Player of the Year, and was the only non-big man he was the first non-big man listed on there. That says something, because this is predominantly a center or like a real big power forward award. Herb Jones is going to take the toughest assignments every single game. No matter the player. You're a point guard, he's going to defend you. 2 guard, he's going to defend you. Wing, gotcha. Power forward, center. We talked about this the other day with the death lineup for the Pelicans. Herb Jones playing that Draymond Green style role. If he can defend guys like Nikola Jokic at least reasonably well, Bam Adebayo, some of those people that are significantly taller than him, defending up positions here, he's going to get a lot of credit. I think when you look at centers, they're not out there on the perimeter guarding point guards. They're down by the basket, hanging back, trying to block shots, right? That's what Rudy Gobert did. The reason he struggles in the playoffs is you kind of scheme him out and put him on the perimeter. Now he's on skates and he's not nearly as effective. So centers can be limited with that. If Herb Jones is playing center defensively for the team and doing a good job of it, if he's also guarding point guards and literally everybody, people are going to look at him and go like, look at this dude. And if the Pelicans have another top 5, top 10 defense, then he's going to get a ton of credit for it. And with DeJounte Murray here, it frees him up a little bit. Maybe there's times when he needs a rest and he doesn't need to take the toughest defensive assignment, and you let him roam a little bit, playing some free safety, if you will. Those are the type of things that I think are going to get him a lot of attention in terms of voters, and voters are already paying attention to him because of the past couple of years. That's going to go a really long way. And if the Pelicans play with that small ball lineup, Zion at the 5, Herb defending the 5s, what have you with it, the death lineup that we talked about earlier in the week for the everydayers, if that's an effective lineup and that's getting like kind of national media run that like, look, the Pelicans have a Warriors-esque death lineup and it's winning them games and it's making them a contender in the West, and the reason it's working is Herb Jones, there's your narrative that you want with this sort of thing. If Herb is playing elite perimeter defense and also defending bigs at an above average rate to good rate, and that small ball lineup is effective, eyes are going to be on Herb Jones like never before. And that's how he wins this award. He's the only guy on this list that guards 5 positions like that and does it exceptionally well. He does everything. He blocks 3-point shots. I can't tell you how hard it is to block 3-point shots. You don't understand how rare that is. When you look at the NBA stats data of 3-point shots, like 85 or more % of them are open or wide open. So no defender within 4 feet of the shooter. Players don't take threes because, one, you need to launch them a little bit differently. It can have a slow wind up for a shot that you need to put some more force behind, things like that. So you only take those when you're wide open because it's not the same as just a quick little like bunny that you put up and score, because you've got to get. So when you take those shots, you need to be wide open because it is, in theory, easier to block if the defender's the same distance from you. So no one takes contested threes. It's a bad shot. Herb Jones is regularly blocking people's three-point attempts. That doesn't happen at a high or regular rate in the NBA, and Herb Jones doesn't. That says a lot right there. If that death lineup works, he's going to get so much credit for kind of unlocking it and making it work with the Pelicans, and they're going to be good. Now, there's a flip side to this. Here's how he doesn't win. It's a bad whistle. It's a bad whistle. He got, at times, a rough whistle from refs the past 2 years, it feels like, where all of a sudden in the first quarter, we're 8 minutes left, 4 minutes into the game, and he has 2 fouls, and now they got to pull him, and he's got to sit for an extended period of time. That's happened a lot in the past, and if he gets a rough whistle again, and maybe defending centers means he's going to get a rougher whistle, needs to foul more, those sorts of things, then it's going to limit his effectiveness, and he can still make the all-defensive team, but he won't win Defensive Player of the Year. You've got to kind of keep those fouls low, I think, and that's really where Herb Jones could get hurt. But I will say this. I think that whistle has a very good chance of changing this season. Herb Jones somehow hadn't made an all-defensive team yet, and he made it last year. That just, refs now know him as an all-defensive guy, right? So much of defense and the way the refs call it, I feel like, is based on your reputation. Now, Herb has the right reputation. He doesn't complain to the refs or any of those things, really. But he hasn't had the accolades with it. Now Herb Jones is an award winner, or an all-defensive team award winner, however you want to call it. Finishing as the only non-big man, or the first non-big man in Defensive Player of the Year, that's something that it's like refs are going to look at Herb Jones and be like, well, he made the all-defensive team last year. That probably wasn't a foul, so we're not going to call it. That gets you that leeway. What supercharged Drew Holiday is when he made the second team all defense that first time here in New Orleans. And then all of a sudden, everyone just took him more seriously as a better defender, refs included, and things changed. I think Herb now gets the benefit of the doubt because he has been that defender that's made an award list at this point in time. Refs know that he's going to now have kind of the reputation for that sort of thing, which maybe means he can get away with fouls a little bit more, which in theory then makes him an even better defender. So this is something that snowballs on itself, and that's really, really cool and really, really fun and what we want to see here. So we're thinking big things for Herb Jones this year, and I think he could easily win Defensive Player of the Year or really be in the running. Seeing him at 13th on this list, plus 6,000, was a little bit wild to me, and I think he definitely should be higher on there. A couple other things to note before we get into CJ McCollum for Sixth Man of the Year in the next segment here. Willie Green, 8th best odds to win Coach of the Year at plus 1,500. For Most Improved, there's 3 Pelicans on there, but there's long odds. Herb Jones and Trey Murphy are tied at plus 7,500. Further down the list is DeJounte Murray at plus 1,500 for Most Improved. In terms of Rookie of the Year, of the names on the board, Yves Missi is second to last with plus 20,000, but he has better odds than the last place player, which is Bronny James, who's plus 30,000. But Yves Missi is second to last there. Doesn't seem like going all in on him for Rookie of the Year is a move you want to do, at least per FanDuel here. But if you believe in him or you know something we don't know, Yves Missi is a play that is going to win you some big money right there. So coming up next, CJ McCollum for Sixth Man of the Year. We talked about trading him yesterday, so this is quite a flip. But say he's not traded, and he is the sixth man, and we'll give you some insight into that too. Does he win? Is it likely to win? I'm going to tell you that's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. All right. Thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. And now for your second listen, Locked On Saints. Ross Jackson making sense of everything black and gold. He was out at the event last night at Sports Drink with the panel of all the Pelicans media that you want to hear from, talking everything with us. He was there. He's excited for this Pelican season. I'm just pumped about the Saints right now, and this is a lot of fun. So subscribe to Locked On Saints, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make them your second listen today. So let's get into CJ McCollum, and this is quite the shift from saying trade him away, trade CJ away, in literally yesterday's episode. Yesterday's episode was, I don't want to call it hot takey, but wild things that could happen. But they're wild, so they're unlikely to happen. CJ McCollum for Sixth Man of the Year. I don't have odds for you per FanDuel because he's not listed on their Sixth Man of the Year stats or anything like that of their like kind of short list, long list, whatever you want to call it for the awards here. Let's see. Let's look at the favorites here. I'm pulling it up on here. Malik Monk, Naz Reid, Josh Hart, Alex Caruso, Norm Powell, Dante DiVincenzo, Jordan Clarkson, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Buddy Hield, Karis LeVert, Bobby Portis, Russell Westbrook, Malcolm Brogdon, Benedict Mathurin, DeAndre Hunter, Keldon Johnson. I think CJ has a real good shot at this award. A real good shot. The reason he's not listed on there is people don't know if he's starting or not. But the whole panel for everyone at the show the other night, we all gave the same starting lineup for the Pelicans that you're most likely to see. And it was Zion Williamson, Herb Jones, DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Herb Jones, and Daniel Tice, which means CJ McCollum is coming off the bench there. So we all think, the Pelicans insiders think, that he's going to be the sixth man for this team. You know, you could call Sixth Man of the Year the 20-point per game defensive liability award, right? I saw that on Reddit. I stole from there. I don't have the Redditor's handle, but that was actually like a really good way to put it, right? Like, this award most often goes to an impactful bench player that just scores like 18 points or more off the bench. And that comes off the bench for more games than he starts. And the reason they're probably on the bench is not to give the bench some punch, but it's usually defensive liability for the most part, not always, right? When you look at the past number of Sixth Man of the Year, you have Naz Reid last year. He's an above average defender. Malcolm Brogdon, who's older but good defender, but he scored 15 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and shot the ball exceptionally well from three at over 44%. Tyler Hero a couple years ago at 20.7 points per game off the bench, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Jordan Clarkson, 18.4 points per game. The year before that, Montrezl Harrell, 18.6. Lou Williams won it in back-to-back years, 20 points and 22.6. Eric Gordon, 16.2. There's a theme here. Basically, 18 points and up off the bench is going to put you in the running for this. The other thing you see with almost all of these players other than Montrezl Harrell is they shot the three ball pretty well. Naz Reid last year, 41.4%. Malcolm Brogdon, 44.4%. Tyler Hero, 40%. Jordan Clarkson a little bit lower because he's not an amazing shooter at 35%. Lou Williams, 36% both years. Eric Gordon, 37%. CJ McCollum shot the ball at a 43% rate from deep last year. He averaged 20 points per game. He's going to be in the running for this award if he comes off the bench more often than he starts. It's really as simple as that. CJ is still going to play starter minutes. 33 minutes per game last year, 20 points, 3.7 rebounds, 4.3 assists. 4.3 rebounds, 4.6 assists. Those numbers, when you compare them to the ones that we just went down, absolutely are going to be in contention. 43% from three on 8.4 attempts per game. That's going to get it done too. You don't need defense to win Sixth Man of the Year. That's a big part of it as well. If CJ is coming off of the bench, and we'll get into that part in a second here, he's going to be in the running for this. There's no reason he can't score. I don't know if it'll be 20 points per game, but there's no reason that it can't be something along the lines of 16 to 18 points per game with a near, above 40% from three and about 4 or 5 assists, because he'll be playing some of the backup point guard role for this team too, along with Jose Alvarado. And while Alvarado is an impactful player off of the bench, he's not going to have the numbers of a CJ McCollum. Now, there's 2 ways that CJ maybe gets hurt when it comes to this award. One, Trey could also be Sixth Man of the Year, depending on the role that they have in play with the shooting, with the scoring. His size lets him be a little bit more impactful on the defensive side of the ball. That could make a difference here with that sort of thing. So if Trey's kind of their main guy off the bench and CJ's, kind of slide into your 7th guy, and you're splitting hairs there, that's something that could take away from him a little bit. Maybe they're both kind of splitting that role and they're kind of eating into each other's stats, cannibalizing each other's numbers and those sorts of things. That's not an ideal scenario either for the New Orleans Pelicans when it comes to CJ McCollum winning this award. The other reason why he might not win this, and this is the one that's kind of like sad and funny to me here, is with injuries to this team and how it goes, could CJ end up starting more games than he comes off the bench, even if the intention is for him to be the sixth man for this team? Kind of similar at times to, the role that Trey Murphy has filled. Someone goes down and in comes Trey Murphy, right? For his career, Trey has played 198 games and he started 89 of those. Now, that is more games coming off of the bench than starting. He did that last year. For 53 games played, he only started 23 of them. And the only requirement is that you come off the bench more than you start. But it might get kind of close for CJ McCollum depending on injuries. We hope that doesn't happen. If Brandon Ingram or Zion goes down, you would imagine Trey Murphy is the guy that's going to step in and kind of fill that role. But in the backcourt, if there's a Murray injury, and there's no reason to think there will be, that's going to be CJ slotting right back in there. And that could kind of take away from his candidacy. But when you look at the sixth man of the year, I look at that Tyler Hero year, and I think that comps out pretty close to what we're going to expect from CJ McCollum here. He averaged 20.7 points per game, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. That's going to probably be a similar-ish stat line to what CJ will put up. That's a similar stat line to what he put up last year. And I think that's really going to be kind of a factor into all of this as well. So I think he's going to be in the running when it comes to this. And I think he's going to be a really effective player for the team in whatever role. And we're not really worried about him starting or coming off the bench. He's going to kind of adapt to whatever role he wants. Here's the one thing, and this is the biggest caveat, and I forgot to write this down. I'm glad it's coming to me right now. Of all of the guys we've talked about for sixth man of the year, those players did close games. Naz Reid closed games, Malcolm Brogdon, Tyler Hero, Jordan Clarkson. They closed games. They were there in clutch situations. By the way, CJ is on the board for clutch player of the year. Long odds at plus 15,000, but he's in there for it all. Is CJ going to be closing games? I don't know. Maybe, quite possibly, maybe not. But if he's not closing games, that I think is going to hurt his candidacy for sixth man of the year and actively take away from that. That's still TBD. There's a lot we don't truly know about this team just yet, but that's a big part of it too. So what do you think about Zion for MVP, Herb for Defensive Player of the Year, CJ for Sixth Man of the Year? Do you have thoughts on Willie Green for Coach of the Year, Most Improved, whether it's Herb, Trey, or Murray? What about Misi when it comes to Rookie of the Year? Let me know in the comments down below, but we are starting the campaign right now. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans, this week of Locked On Pelicans. We are back to 5 days a week. This was a lot of fun. On Monday's show, we're going to be a week away from Media Day. We're going to have a lot to talk about. I'm looking forward to it all. If you've got questions, show ideas, put them in the comments down below. Become an everydayer. That means you listen to Locked On Pelicans Monday through Friday. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. I'll be back with y'all on Monday.